Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram, and today we're joined by Tim Abraham. Tim, appreciate your time. Obviously, we've had to do this via video call due to the current climate we're all kind of living in at the moment with this coronavirus. So, appreciate your time. Hope you're keeping well, most importantly.
Yeah, all good at the moment. Yeah, just like you, just working away really, just trying to adapt. So it's a big challenge for everybody, of course.
So let's get into the interview. So you're best known for your 23 years, I believe, working for Sky Sports. Predominantly, majority of that was working as the cricket correspondent for Sky Cricket. But was cricket always an interest of yours from a young age?
Yeah, I suppose in many ways I had the dream job in that, you know, I was brought up on cricket and I played club cricket. I went along to cricket with my dad. I used to score for his team and do the scoring. And then sometimes when they're short, I get the odd game for their men's team. And, but yeah, I was just brought up in cricket. I think it kind of needs, I think it's different now, but I think certainly it kind of needs to be in the blood because cricket's not everyone's cup of tea. So you kind of need that passion for it. Certainly test match cricket and the longer form of the game isn't something you can just quickly switch into. 2020's changed that, of course, the short form of the game. But because it was part of my growing up, you know, cricket has always been a passion. So to get the chance to go to report on it, you know, a sport that I just really loved and like to think that I sort of knew about, you know, really well as well. I love meeting the characters, the top elite players who were so much better at it than I was. So, but it's always been a passion, really. I do remember when I was young how I used to see sort of editions of the Cricketer magazine. At the back, they had how you could go on these cricket tours and you know, package holidays around it with all the sort of nice grounds of the Caribbean and so on. I thought at the time, wouldn't it be amazing to go on, you know, a cricket tour and watch England? And basically I got the job that enabled me to do that. So that was pretty amazing, really. So yeah, it's always been there. It's always been my, the sport I've been most passionate about, liking all sport, of course, but cricket's been the one that I've been most passionate about. So yeah, from a very early age, you know, it was there really from playing club cricket right through to reporting on it too.
And then how did your career first start? If you take it all the way back, your first opportunity working in journalism came via radio, I believe?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I pretty much knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of work in sports journalism. So I did a degree that I thought would help me with that. So I did a sort of a media studies degree. Now, at that time, there weren't many journalism courses around at undergraduate level, let alone sports journalism courses as there are now. But I knew, even then, I knew that I'd need something else. So I did a postgraduate journalism course down in Cardiff. And whilst I was there, I did a lot of work experience at the local radio station, Red Dragon Radio. Went out and did match reporting. I worked in the newsroom because it was on my doorstep and really enjoyed doing that. But I mean, I loved doing the radio work. And actually, at the end of my year, they had someone who was leaving. So they got in touch and said, basically, you know us, we know you. Would you like to sort of come and work for us? So, so obviously I jumped at the chance. So that was my sort of foot in the door. And I did sort of, I worked in news and sport there, which I thought was pretty good because just from a writing point of view and just doing stories, working in news sort of really, really helped in that. There's so many sports stories that are news stories in many ways. And I worked in news and sport, and then I wanted to specialise in sport. So I was the sports editor at Two Counties Radio down in Bournemouth. So I ran the desk there. And that was good because that's at the time when Harry Redknapp was the manager of Bournemouth, and he was great value and such a help to me as still a young reporter. You know, he was great to deal with.
Was he a good character to work alongside?
Oh, absolutely. Then it was so laid back yourself to come in, have a cup of tea, you know, make me a cup of tea, and we'd sit in his office and do our interviews and things. So he was great and really helpful. And actually, at the time, Bournemouth were doing well under him, and they had a good, you know, few cut runs and that. So you know, that was great experience reporting on that. A good time to be down there, and I did a bit of Hampshire cricket as well. And then I moved up to London to become a reporter for LBC and IRN, Independent Radio News, and that was in all sport again, as solely as a sports reporter. So I did lots of other national and international stories as well, and I did cricket tours for them. And then in 1993, actually, I mean, I sent off a CV and a tape of my radio work to Sky.
I've heard about this story. You were at Trent Bridge and
yeah,
letter came through. But yeah, you can explain it.
I was covering the Ashes. Yeah, and I got this message in the days before we had mobile phones and things. So to ring this person who I'd never heard of, and I kind of ignored it in a way for ages. And then it turns out that this was the secretary of a guy called Vic Wakeling, who sadly passed away now. But he was the head of football at Sky. And basically, because when I sent my CV into Sky News, as it was, I got the letter back saying, "Oh, thank you for your interest. We don't have anything going at the moment." So I just, I thought that's fine. I was still really enjoying what I was doing, so I wasn't that bothered, to be honest. But then my details got passed on to Sky Sports, who are launching their own kind of news programming around their football coverage. And so they got in touch with me, and I kind of ignored it. And then when I actually did eventually ring this person back, she said, "Oh, we've been trying to get hold of you for ages. We'd like you, if you're interested, to come down for an interview for Sky Sports." So I thought, oh, goodness. So I, obviously went down after the test match had finished, and it went really well. I thought it did. I mean, I had this chat, and I was expecting to be really grilled and put on the spot, and all my sporting knowledge, sort of really quizzed and everything. And actually, it was just a chat about football with this guy, Vic Wakeling. It was really informal, and I didn't get a grilling at all, like, how do you deal with this story or whatever it was. And so I was thinking, well, that seemed to go quite well. And then, but I didn't hear anything back for a long time. And it's a few days. And so I eventually rang this person. I said, "Oh, I guess it means I haven't got the job." And she said, "Oh, no, you have. We're putting. Oh, didn't he tell you?" And I said, "Well, no, he didn't." So that was it. And I was straight into TV. Literally, I hadn't been out on a shoot or anything really before. I did a bit of TV work with ITN, who are sort of affiliated to IRN, but very limited experience. But the typical Sky way was, right, get out, and you're thrown into the deep end. And
did you find that transition from radio to television difficult, or? So as you said,
initially very, very different. It certainly in the writing, because it's all about writing to pictures. So that took a bit of, there were pieces that I did that I had to redo because the producers would say, "Well, actually, this is a better top shot. You should use this shot," and things. So it did take a bit of getting used to, but you learn fast. I mean, that's what I really enjoyed about Sky, or admired them, in that they gave you that chance, but it was kind of in the very early days, it's kind of like on the training sort of reporting as well. But it wasn't like you took it personally. I mean, I think everyone understood. So if you had to recut pieces, you did it and got on with it, really. But yeah, there's always that transition to make. But I learned a lot of watching more experienced colleagues who wrote really well. And I always think, actually, I mean, even to this day, and this is something I tell my students, that although it's television, whatever the medium, being a good writer is really important. And the best TV reporters, the best TV sports reporters, and the best writers, they write to picture really well. So writing and just having a really good turn of phrase and writing to picture is really well. It's not about doing a good piece to camera or a good live. Yeah, that's fine. That's important. But being a good writer, I think, is really important in TV.
And then your first opportunity in Sky, that was mainly football.
Yeah.
Then the opportunity in cricket came. How?
Yeah, I did football for 6 years. I actually, in the days where there was a bit of an off season in football, I used to get loaned out to the cricket department because they knew that I liked my cricket. And it was around the time of the 1999 World Cup where Sky had programming around that. And I got seconded and worked on that, which I really enjoyed. And then I worked for a program called, after that, The Pavilion End, which is a really good magazine program around cricket that lasted about an hour. and what I enjoyed doing with that was I got into doing some nice featurey stuff. I could go out and do a shoot for 2 days at a county, or do a profile on a player, or do a good story. And opposed to my cricket, my football work, where it was very just quick turnaround, news stories, do a shoot in a day, cut, edit, it goes out, and that's it, move on. I could really take my time and do some nice features, which I really enjoyed. But as they upped their coverage, Charles Colville, who kind of had the role, if you like, as being a reporter, was doing more studio work. So they needed somebody else, and asked me if I fancied doing it. So so that was me doing cricket. So it's around that 1999, 2000. I almost my first assignment straight away was to do the South Africa tour, England's tour of South Africa, in 99, 2000. And that was a time when they were the lowest of the low. They just lost a test series to New Zealand. Nasser Hussain was appointed the captain with Duncan Fletcher. They'd never even met, you know, and they were then off on this tour. So it was quite an interesting and newsworthy time to do it. I suppose, in a way, looking back, the real start of the building blocks for them becoming the success that they are today, really, right from that partnership.
And how was it? Obviously, a cricket tour is not 1 or 2 week assignment when you're going overseas. You're talking 2-3 months even. It looks glamorous, but how did you find it? Being away from home, family, friends, etc.
Yeah, I did. I think, and I think all the other sort of reporters will kind of agree with me. I mean, it's really hard work, in that because of the appetite and the demands, you are working every day. There's no, there's no time off at all, because every day there's a story to do, and the ECB would put up a player most days, and then I had to cover all the warm-up games to a test series. And then I do all the build-up stuff to a test match, then all the test match days, and then everything just moves on. So you don't get a day off at all, and it's a long time away from home. But I think all the reporters, you kind of get in this bubble, and you get used to doing it in a way. It's and in some ways, because you are away from home, actually working and just being so focused is no bad thing, because it just keeps. It keeps you going in many ways. It's only when you stop and get back and you think, you know, my God, I've just done straight 2.5, 3 months. I think one Ashes tour, I did 76 straight days, and that's, you know, you're even reporting on a travel day, you know, because a player would be pulled up, even if it was at the airport and a quick grab of the interview, you still have to send that back and do a package around that. You know, either it's a sort of a follow on from how England had done, or it's a preview to what their next challenge is, and so on. So I remember even literally walking onto a plane, and we were almost filing stuff back using the Wi-Fi of the airport to get some stuff back on our computers and things. So, but you kind of get into a bubble of doing it, and you get used to it, and in some ways it takes your mind off being away as well, because you've got, you know, a lot of work to focus on. And do you know what? It's great fun too. I mean, whilst you're away a lot and you are working every day, you just get to see a lot of all the countries where you go. So whilst you don't get a lot of chance to explore, you see enough of the country to take it in. Yeah.
How important was kind of your relationship with the media officer, as such? So did you have a chance to? Was it kind of restrictive in terms of the kind of players that you had access to? Could you go and say, I want to have an interview with the skipper, or was it just kind of, here's who you have today? How important was that?
Pretty much you were served. I mean, you could make requests, but you're pretty much, I mean, the ECB got better at it, but they know themselves who the newsworthy person is. Say, for example, I don't know, we're looking to head to a test match, and Jimmy Anderson is making his 100th appearance. You know, that's the obvious story. That's the obvious line. Or, you know, Alistair Cook is on the verge of, you know, eclipsing Graham Gooch. So they'd know who the newsworthy people are. And obviously, if there's a bit of controversy, they keep them away as well, you know. So you were pretty much served it, but you can say, look, I'd actually quite like to do a piece on Stuart Broad, or that, and that would be taken into consideration, and, you know, that would often come off too, or you get that as a bonus as well. But I think, given the demands of the media and the ECB like to be in control of that, so the same message is being put out. But it's very telling in a way. It does kind of cut back on creativity in many ways, because you could
Is
go
that
through.
frustrating?
Absolutely. I mean, you might have an idea for a nice story or a nice feature to do, and it kind of gets knocked back. So that is frustrating. But you can tell almost, if you look through the papers, I suppose it applies in all sports, but you always knew when it was, say, a Jimmy Anderson day or a Stuart Broad day or a Nasser Hussain, because every paper would be carrying really the same story, with the same quotes and everything. So it did cut back on that. You were given that player, and it's almost the message to the media is, right, make of it what you will. We're giving you the player. It's up to you to do what you want with that access, really. Yeah.
So, is there any moments covering at home or overseas that particularly stand out for you as a fond memory?
There's a few funnies. I mean, actually, having done I did this when we were at the World Cup in the Caribbean, and I used to do a lot of running to keep fit almost, and get that bit of me time, and just a bit of therapy really. So I was quite into my running and everything. And Paul Nixon, the England wicketkeeper, was this really fit guy. He used to do all these sort of things. So I thought it'd be a really nice piece to do with him about his fitness, and I got access to him. We went running together. We got some really good shots and doing all that. And I did this interview with him on the beach in St. Lucia. So I said to him, it's quite a nice light piece, obviously not very newsy, but just a nice piece to do. And I said, I'll tell you what, a great way. And I said to the cameraman, a great way to end this was, because when the players came back from training, they'd all just dive in the sea and do all their warm downs and all that in the sea. So I said, I do notice, you just come back and you swim in the sea. I mean, great to have that on your doorstep and everything. And so I said, well, how we'll end the piece is we'll just do this sprint into the sea and have a race, and do that. But when I did the piece, we did this as a piece to camera with him in shot as well. And I didn't tell him I was going to do this, but I actually, before I started finishing, I'd say, right, last one then is assist. And I just started running, took him back, and he ran after me, and he's, and that was a really nice way of ending it, and it really worked really well. Gosh, but there are so many really. I mean, going back to almost big moments when Andrew, again at the World Cup, when Andrew Flintoff went out on his pedalo and got in trouble for doing that. Now, I talked about almost the ECB protecting players, but one of their ways of making Andrew Flintoff face up to what he'd done was they put him in front of the media, and we did this, and Sky took that live, and I led off the press conference. So basically, I had to ask some difficult questions, basically of like what were you doing, and all this. So that was quite difficult, and he was very one-wordy and everything. But there have been some amazing press conferences and interviews with the commentators as well, because that's a big part of the job, getting their views on things. And I remember Nasser Hussain was a commentator, and he's a brilliant commentator, but he'd always try and where he could take the mickey or whatever. So we were talking about the Kevin Peterson situation when that was all blowing up, and I basically did this interview with him saying, well, Nasser, you captained England, you know what characters in dressing rooms are like. I guess everybody's not going to get on, but I guess it's about pulling together, once, and as a team. And he said, absolutely right. He said, everyone doesn't get on. Sometimes there are little cliques or whatever, but once you almost go past that white line, everybody's in it together, and you play for the team. And that's what being a good team's all about. Not everybody's not going to get on. Everyone's not going to be the cup of tea. And he said, this was a live interview. He said, for example, look, I'm here talking to you now, doing this interview. He said, I don't like you, but I still do it, and so mate, did it in a joking way. But so there are lots of nice little funnies as well. But massive press conferences. The thing about cricket is that whilst it might not be everyone's cup of tea, it has produced some amazing stories, sports stories. If you think that we've had to deal with ball tampering, the whole Kevin Peterson issue, you know, there's been you know, like we were at the World Cup when, you know, Bob Woolmer died, the Pakistan coach. You know, we were almost covering a World Cup when a murder inquiry was going on. So, which is quite incredible, really. So there's been amazing stories to deal with. You know, the match fixing with Pakistan here. You know, with Mohammed Amir and so on. There've been incredible big stories to cover. You know, and when
Where
Peterson and
does where does
Pete
the
Morris got the sack.
2005 where does the 2005 Ashes?
Yeah,
So I believe you were the when we talk about the victory bus parade. Am I correct in saying you were the only TV personnel that was actually allowed on the bus?
yeah, that's right. I mean, that was a great moment. I mean, yeah, well reminded. It just shows how there's so much, but that was a great, yeah, because given the interest and everything, basically on the England team bus, there was one TV reporter, one radio reporter, and a photographer, and then that's all that was allowed because there was just no room for a whole big media contingent. So my job, so all the pictures and all the interviews are basically pooled for everyone to use. So for the BBC, Sky, Channel 4, and everything I did just got shared by everybody. And that was the sensible agreement, really. So there's myself, Jonathan Agnew from the BBC on there, and one of the Getty photographers on there, and that was it. And then everyone else, you know, was the players and their wives. But that was amazing. I was just doing live interviews on the top of the bus, you know, as they sort of made their way around those amazing crowds. So that was massive as well. Yeah.
And then you touched on Nasser Hussain. If you look at Nasser Hussain and say Michael Atherton, you've obviously seen them, reported on them as players, and then they've eventually become colleagues of yours or ex-colleagues. They're kind of regarded as one of the two best commentators in world cricket at the moment. But what, in your opinion, makes them stand out?
I think what they're good at, I mean, obviously they give you that dressing room and captaincy insight. I mean, if you look at Sky's commentary box, every one of them are pretty much, it's slightly changed with the introduction of people like Rod Key and Ian Ward and so on. But pretty much when you had your Gower, your Botham, your Willis, your Nasser Hussain, every one of them is like a former England captain. And so, but that gave that great insight. I think that's the Sky way. That's what they want. They want that. I mean, that's the way punditry goes throughout broadcasting now, sports broadcasting. They want that dressing room insight, and that's what they're really good at giving, and giving a captain's perspective as well, tactically, you know, what the players are going through and so on. But what was a particular strength of Michael Atherton is because I think he's probably now been a sports journalist longer than he's been a player. So, but they do take themselves out of that dressing room bubble as well, and can be quite critical. I think that takes time. I mean, I think when they're into the job, you know, they're commenting on players that they captained or, you know, sort of played alongside. I think that's always quite difficult and a bit tricky. But I think players kind of get over that, or former players do get over that. And I think the good thing about those two, though, they in the right way, they are critical. And I think if you imagine, I don't think anything that they say when they are quite critical, or the best critics in any sport, I don't think they're saying anything that they probably wouldn't have said in that dressing room anyway. And that was the great thing about Nasser Hussain when he was captain. When you do interview him, because he was so open and honest, he'd say sometimes, like if England had a really bad day, he'd come up with, I thought we were abysmal out there today. You think, I mean, you know, this is good stuff. You know, he's quite powerful stuff and speaking very, very honestly about the team. But then you were waiting for the but, and it came, you know, but I know my players can get us out of this, or we've got the players to turn things around. So quite cleverly, he always backed his players and talked about them positively. But the way when they criticise, it takes getting used to. But the way they do it, I think, and the best ones who do it are those who basically, and the players would admit, and players don't like getting criticised, of course. But if they really break it down and look at what they're saying, it wouldn't be what wouldn't be said in the dressing room anyway. If they played really badly, you can imagine a player having a go at somebody, you know, for playing badly, or you know, or not pulling their weight, or whatever it is. Yeah.
And then, as a sports journalist, how important is it to have a close or a good relationship with the players off camera? Are there any particular players that you kind of got on well away from the kind of the recording
I,
set?
yeah, I'd like to think, because I did it for such a long time, and almost, and why I did it for a long time, I kind of like to think, and I'm quite proud of the way that I got that balance right, really. I was there, cricket was my interest, and, you know, I wanted to, you are England fans in that you want England to do well, but you're certainly not England fans with, you know, cameras or laptops and things, you know, and it's not like all the time you'll just say how great England are all the time. That's not really part of the job. You know, that, you know, you need to be balanced, you need to be honest in your reporting, and pretty much players would front up, you know, the tricky times, if, you know, if they've had a, if you have to talk to somebody about a really bad performance, because no one wants to talk about that, but you need to. That's your go, because that's what I always. I mean, go back to my club cricket background. I kind of think, what would they want to be? What would they want me to be asking them? What would the public want me to be asking them? You know, and that's the way I approached it. So sometimes it's negative, but I think the players, you know, they're grown up and respect that you have to ask those questions, and they'll front up. That's why, you know, that's why a good sort of press officer or media liaison is pretty good, because they'll brief them, they'll say, God, that, you know, they're going to ask you this or that. It could be about, I mean, you know, no more so than the whole Kevin Peterson thing, where that, you know, that story just went on, and the pressure was to ask about Alistair Cook about that the whole time, and of course he got fed up with it. So the secret is to try and do that in a good way, that you will get the best out of somebody. But when it's a bad day, players front up, and they're pretty open and honest about that. I mean, they're not expecting you to try and focus on positives when there's been a terrible batting collapse or so on. But away from that, I'd like to think that that the players respected what I had to do, and I'd like to think that they thought I went about that job in the right way. And given that I did it for so long and I actually got on with the players quite well, I'd like to think that they thought I got that right. And to be honest with you, even though players were, you know, by the end quite a lot younger than me, you still kind of put them on this pedestal because they are playing for England. They're doing something you can only imagine doing, and they're good at what they do. So you always kind of look up to them in many ways. But but you need to respect them and show respect for what they do, and for giving you their time, and you know, just, you know, I think I kind of like to think that they kind of liked what I did, basically. You know, both good and bad, that I did it in the right way.
And are there any moments that stand out that went wrong?
Gosh, that's I never had any real I never had any real disasters, if you like. I remember I was doing a live once at Lords, who are absolute. Got you put one foot on the hallowed turf. So, you know, the steward off the pit. You know, sometimes when you had to do live pieces to camera, that you had to just be on the. Although you had passes and so on, but they were no respecter for what you had to do. They had their job to do the ground staff to get the ground ready. So I was literally in the middle of this live, and this lawnmower was going up and down, almost getting nearer and nearer and nearer as this live report went on. And eventually, we practically got run over by this lawnmower. I mean, it deliberately got so close in that it made us scarper, you know, in the middle of this live. And it was their message, look, oh, yeah, just because you're doing this thing for Sky, don't think that you're going to affect us preparing the ground. So that would, we had to sort of scarper a bit there. I've had some real close shaves when we were doing live reports of county cricket or England warm-up matches, or when the tourists come over and they have their warm-up games, and you're doing live reports into Sky Sports News, but you're doing it when you've got your back to the action. So you're just giving a quick score update or whatever, and then you're talking over stuff that's already been sent back. You know, if it's wickets going down, so you're talking blind, if you like, so that you know they're running in those shots, and you're describing that, and they come back to you in vision. And literally, I a couple of times a ball was whistled past my ear when I've been doing a live report, and I've had to sort of duck or that sort of thing. So those are little things that can go wrong, really. But I no real terrible embarrassing moments anyway.
Do you think there's enough media coverage given to county cricket?
I think that's what Sky Sports News did really well. In doing live reports, that we would have a section during the summer where we were zipping all over maybe 3 or 4 county games, and I thought they did that really well and gave it a good profile. Sky do when they cover domestic cricket, with the counties, with the T20 Blast and so on. But there's no doubt county cricket kind of does. They almost show maybe the opening game and then the climax of the county championship, which is always a good day or always a good moment. But I just think it's about appetite, it's about scheduling, and it's about would they get the audience figures for that, really. So in a way, it's hard showing day in, day out county cricket, but there's lots of other platforms where you can watch that now, and the clubs themselves have their own kind of TV platforms and that now, where it really kicks in. And this is almost where the money is, and where the big interest and crowds is for the shorter form of the game. And I think county cricket is well served by that, really, actually, yeah. And it'd be interesting to see how the 100 goes, or whether that's now going to be put back in now because of what's going on. But that would be cricket back on terrestrial TV as well with the BBC. So, but I think because it's in so many ways all about international cricket and all about England and all about the live coverage there, and with schedules now, from start to finish, from the start of the summer right through to with September, it's pretty much England all the way. When you think there's Test cricket, T20 cricket, one-day internationals, so often there's not that scope to show a lot of county cricket. It's a tricky one.
And then when the end came at Sky, did it come as a shock to you? Or?
Yeah, I was in India at the time, and I was just I'll never forget it, because I was actually filing back an interview with Alistair Cook the day before the first test in India. We were in Chandigarh, and I got a call from a colleague, and on my phone, we were actually in the hotel lobby, because the way that the job changed was we had these kind of mobile view units, which were amazing, which used to pull in all the internet connections of all the surrounding sort of networks, and you could literally just broadcast HD quality pictures back to the UK just almost by making a phone call. It's an incredible piece of equipment, and that's what you see now. It's not like big satellite trucks anymore. And that's why we could do literally from wherever we were in the world. We could do report on England training live. It was fantastic to do. So we're using this to send back our pictures and our story. And then I got a call saying, "Oh, look, Tim, we're gonna." We got sort of cuts here at Sky, which I knew that were happening, but I think would affect me. And so that we're pulling everyone back who's on foreign assignment. So we're looking to get you out, and as soon as possible. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing in many ways, because I'd done all the build-up stuff, and in fact, we'd been in Bangladesh before that. We went straight to India from Bangladesh, and it's always the real climax of the winter just about to happen. So so we flew home. I didn't cover the Test match, so I did all the build up, and then they pulled me back, and then I went in later that week when I got back and said, look, yeah, we're not going to be covering cricket as we are once used to with you, and there are new plans. So basically, yeah, I was made redundant by Sky, and it was ironic that there were 4 senior reporters who there was myself, Nick Collins, who was who's there even longer than me, and the real face of football reporting at Sky, and our guy in the Midlands, and Phil Edwards, our rugby guy. So we're quite senior guys at Sky. So it came as a bit of a shock to everybody, and it became quite a big media story, because I think people knew what we did for so long. Got written about a fair bit. So it was a shock, yeah, definitely. But I've been there, I've been there a long time, and do you know what I mean? I just said to them, almost my parting shot was, look. Although I was gutted, and it was a terrible thing to sort of be told, but I said to my boss, I said, and it was through him, I just said, look, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that you gave, because I've had a ball. I've travelled the world doing what I really wanted to do, and I think, in all honesty, if I wasn't doing cricket at Sky, I don't think that there was anything else there for me, because that was my passion, and I couldn't really envisage going back to sort of doing football reporting. And there's better people than me who were able to do that, in all honesty, who had more of a passion, and that's what you need. Everybody who works at Sky, they're so passionate about what they do. And they're just sports, they just know everything about sport, and they're just so professional. And I was doing something that I thought I was professional and I enjoyed doing. So I did have the odd thought that, God, if I wasn't doing this, what would I do? And so when it came the time that they were restructuring because of budgets and so on, and I was on my way. It was I kind of left, and I left on a high, and I left nothing out there. I gave it my all, I really did, and I think they knew that. But I needed to say, look, you know what, thanks for the opportunity. It's just been amazing, yeah.
And then you've moved into lecturing now at Liverpool John Moores. But before we get into that, do you feel there's still some unfinished business in sports journalism?
Yeah. Oh God, that's a really good question. Yes, I think I do. I don't. Do you know? I didn't miss it when because it was because I had been doing it a long time, and it was a really good period to take stock, which I did for a few months. And I was actually, in many ways, quite glad, maybe the wrong word, but there was a bit of relief that I was out of the bubble in many ways, and that I was given this opportunity to take stock again. But I didn't miss it at first. And even when I started lecturing here, because I was getting my head around a completely new job and a new challenge, and working in the world of academia. I'm not an academic. I mean, the good thing about Liverpool John Moores is that they're very keen that they want people teaching their students who've worked in the professional world, and I think that's a great thing. But there's a lot of academic side to the job as well that I had to get my head around. So it was a big challenge. So I didn't really miss it at all until last summer, when there was that amazing summer in Test cricket. Yeah. And I was seeing stories and press conferences, and I just kind of thought, oh, I'd be there doing that, So that's the only time. So it's a bit of a delayed reaction. But I was always quite interested in the mentoring side of things. Even at Sky, I got involved in projects that they did for young people. We did this thing where, through a charity, we would take elite athletes into schools and things. I got involved in that and enjoyed doing that. So it's a kind of, in a way, a natural kind of progression, in that I'm still involved, but in a different way. And I still do quite a lot of punditry work, on the radio and things. But sometimes I think I do still come up with story ideas. So I don't think you ever kind of lose it. And I'm always thinking about, when I'm teaching students, about whether it's about, writing for TV or we're covering stories or whatever, we have our news days. I still come up with good, I'd like to think of good story ideas, and I think, well, that'd make a nice piece. So I don't think you ever switch off. And in a way, it's good to keep your hand in and doing that, which I'm, kind of doing. And I'd like to do a bit more, but I don't think you ever lose the almost the journalistic juices. They always keep flowing, I think, yeah.
And then how have you found that transition into lecturing? And what is the kind of the biggest advice you can give to budding sports journalists viewing this?
Yeah, the move's been great. Very different from staring down the barrel of a camera, and I'm probably talking to thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe a million people who have whatever audience figures are, because your stuff gets shown all over the world. You never knew where your pieces would pop up and so on. So the discipline is very different. Talking to a sort of a room full of students, so that's something to get used to. But I found the transition. I'd like to say the practical side of it is it makes me think about what I did. I mean, my whole approach. I'm a module leader for a module called Sports Journalism Skills, and basically I kind of rewrote that course. And what I've tried to do is, I thought, right, what did I do almost from start to finish in my job? From turning up at a sports event or a press conference, and taking the job right through to finding my story. And that's pretty much what I've done. I chronologically take them through. So we do preview writing and filming. We do the press conference etiquette, or doing one-on-one with players, and then filing material, and then keeping stuff back for follow-up stories that you might need to do. And it's that whole process. So that's the way I've gone about it. And I think that's gone pretty well. But that's me, doing what I know. That's the bread and butter for me, if you like. And just being interested in keeping on top of sports stories is what I do, and it's what I'll always do. But the academic side of it is the harder work, in that I have to mark dissertations. I have to do a lot of issues around law and ethics, which is obviously something I did, but but in the working environment, teach and mark work on that is a different prospect altogether. So whilst it is a very practical and vocational course, it is still an honours degree, and it means that there's a lot of academic work to do, and that means a lot of marking, and something that that I never really did at all. But it's about being organised, and I do. Every day is challenging. I think I might have said to you off the air that just when I think I've cracked it, or on top of it, something then hits you that you're not expecting. You have to adapt to, but that's the challenge of the job.
And so the biggest advice you can probably give to budding students?
Yes, advice, good point. Do you know what? I think it comes back to, I think there are two things. And I know how competitive it is out there now. So given that competition, and given it is that there are a lot of people who want to do, and, whatever the sport is, to do a job like I did, because there are a lot of sports courses around now, and degree courses in journalism and other courses. And you're guided through your courses, so that's fine, and you get trained and you have good skills. But I think, and do you know what? I think this was always the case. It's always going to be a case of employers wanting to see what else have you done. So fine, you've got this degree. I know you can do. I can see here you pass your shorthand exams. You pass your exam, we know that you could be a good all-round journalist, but what have you done outside of your course that's going to almost impress me? So I think it's about breaking away from the course and doing your own thing. So it's about doing blogs. If there's a sports issue or a sport that you really care about, do a blog on it. It's about being on social media, having something to say. Because you can set up yourself as a journalist. Anybody can do it, as it were. So it's about having blogs. It's about going and doing stories, getting good experience. And so when they've got that pile of applicants, and they ask you, so what else have you done? You can then say, well, look, I've been writing this blog, or you can show them pieces of work that you've done. So it's breaking out of that mold and coming up with something that. That's different from the crowd. It's not following the crowd. Following the crowd is everybody having that qualification, but it's having something else, or having got a story, if you've got published and so on. We've had some students who, on work experience, went to the Liverpool Echo as sports reporters, which is a really strong paper up here, and did so well. And this guy, who is good, he had a double page spread published and everything. That for him would be, look, this is showing, look, this is what I've done. This is the, because, it was so good that they sort of published his story. So to have that byline, and, that'd be great for him for when he goes out into that world. So it's coming up with different ideas. There's a really good quote from Alex J. Kelsky, who I think may have just left as the sports editor of the Times. I'm not quite sure, but I got in touch with him because I wanted quotes from people in the business about their jobs and what it takes to be. And he came up with this really good quote I use, and he said that what he was looking for as a sports editor was someone who didn't follow the crowd, who came up with ideas and who can break stories, if you like. So that's the advice I would give, getting experience. And two, just, it comes back to a point I made earlier about being a good writer, just really working, and really, if you enjoy writing, just keep working at that, because I think that's the bottom line skill that everyone needs, whatever medium they're in. If it's the written word, if it's writing for websites or newspapers or radio or TV, being a good writer is really important. So if you can work at that and be a good writer, then I think that's good advice. In that, as I said before, the best reporters, no matter what the medium, are the best writers.
And do you think there's, if we focus specifically on cricket, do you think there's opportunities out there for anyone wanting to be specialised as a sports journalist in cricket, in whatever platform there's out there? Do you reckon there's opportunity?
I think so, because cricket stirs the emotions. And if you think of the global appeal of cricket, I mean, and with all that's going on now, with the different competitions there are, I do think there is, because it's an amazing sport in that there aren't so many forms of one sport that, you know, operate on the world stage. You've got Test cricket, you've got one-day international cricket, you've got 2020 cricket. Now we've got the 100. And if you think about all the leagues that are going around the world, the IPL, the Big Bash, the Caribbean League, and so on, and tournaments in the subcontinent. So there's a lot of cricket going on. There's a lot to report on. But having said that, there are a lot of people out there who want to do it. I mean, going to a press conference in India and seeing the media interest there, it's phenomenal. I mean, you know, press conferences, and there are all these little. I mean, you never know where they're from, because they've got quite small cameras, and they work for websites, they work for blogs, and so on. You know, it's so. You know, there's lots of avenues, and I think through digital there are a lot of avenues to work on. But the competition is still there. But there's I think in this digital multimedia world where you know, you do have to be an all-rounder. So it's about being a good writer and about being able to you know, to film and cut pieces together in TV and do audio pieces as well. I think that's the future, and multimedia, you know, with the websites that are around, I think that should provide a lot of opportunity. And if you think now as well, you know, that sporting institutions are almost setting up their own TV stations in their own right. For example, Lancashire have contacted us to say, because of their digital platform, they're looking for students who would like working on cricket, like filming cricket and doing social media stuff for their own channel. You got Liverpool FC TV, you've got Man United TV, you've got Chelsea TV. So there are lots of opportunities in sport, because these governing bodies or clubs actually want their own media platforms, and they're looking for people who can do that job. And that's exactly what student journalists can provide.
And then going back to yourself, I know you touched on it earlier that you still do a little bit of radio work. I saw that you did an online stage interview with Graham Gooch recently. You mentioned about your podcast. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, that's great. That is a great way. I think that's a really good way to keep my hand in, and to keep in touch with the industry, and to keep talking to the people that I know and keeping in touch. It's really important, my job, to know the latest things that are going on, whether it's about employment or about what people are looking for, how the industry is changing, because it's, you know, changing so fast all the time. So you know, keeping in touch with my colleagues is really important to do that. But my podcast idea, and I've done a couple of these, and I'm going to develop this, is to I think in this quick fix world, and there are younger hotshot reporters, if you like, who are coming on the scene who are very good. But there are still some amazing veteran sports reporters who actually might have retired, who perhaps don't do it anymore, but who have amazing journalistic or sports stories to tell, basic from how they got their jobs to the big stories they covered. Off the top of my head, I started right here in Liverpool with a guy called John Keith, who I remember when I was a fledgling young radio reporter coming up to do Liverpool games. And he was like the doyen, if you like, in that, they laugh about it, but they were almost called the Merseyside Mafia, where they were the local guys, but they had great contacts and they just knew the club inside out. And I didn't really talk to them or anything, because I was, you know, they were much, you know, bigger fish than I was. But you know, he'd been just doing this job for so long, and it just thought to me when I was doing this idea for the podcast and that idea of talking to these sporting veterans, he'd be a great guy to start with because it's here in Liverpool as well. And he was great. So I got in touch with him, but he goes right back to the days of Bill Shankly. He used to ghost his column in the paper, and he would ring him up, and or Shankly would ring him about advice about doing, and this incredible relationship that these guys had, with the managers at that time in a very different world. Now you wouldn't see that now, that, I mean, it just doesn't, as he said to me in the interview, you'd be surprised if that say local reporters or, top football correspondents would have the whole number of Jurgen Klopp, for example, or if they'd have his mobile, because everything is kind of stage managed now. We've talked about going through press officers and things, but to have that one-on-one contact was amazing. They give Bob Paisley a lift to an end of season awards do. It's incredible. So the access and contacts that they had were amazing, and some of the stories he told about Bill Shankly was great. So there are people out there who have these amazing, and I'm hoping that will be inspirational to students and for them to think about some from some old school stories, if you like. And I think sports journalism world would actually quite find that quite entertaining and a good listen to as well.
What is it called? Just so that for anyone.
It's called There You Are. Yes. So, and I got that from coming back to a guy who is a good writer and just a good sports journalist, Mike Walters of the Daily Mirror now. He's actually just a really funny guy, but he's just got a great turn of phrase. He uses puns in a really good way and in a funny way, but he's just a really good writer. And he did a lot of cricket. He was the cricket correspondent for the Daily Mirror a few years ago. And he was a guy I got on with really well, but he had this phrase about if he'd just see you, he'd say, there you are. And I just thought, do you know what? It almost sums up. It's a phrase that I got from a colleague, and it kind of sets up exactly what the interviews are about in a way. So that's what I called them, yeah. I've got one with Cornelius Lysaght coming out with the intention of obviously building up to the Grand National that's now been obviously cancelled now. Yeah. But I've spoken to him as well, and that's going to be coming out. So great to hear about, in a world that I don't know, if there's one sport, if someone said to me, if there's one sport that you're really out of your comfort zone, it would be racing. I'm not a racing person at all, but I've been to the Grand National a few times, and it's an amazing place. And if you think of the amazing stories that come out of there, with the bomb scare, the race that never was, obviously Red Rum, and you had Tiger Roll going for a third successive win this year, that would have been a big story. But it's just talking about his career, how he got into the job, again, very much like me, local radio through to working for 5 Live and being the racing correspondent. So it was really good to get his perspective on how he goes about his job and the way he started and some stories he tells. So that's coming out soon now.
So Tim, perfect. Really appreciate your time today. Fantastic stories, great insight for any budding sports journalist coming through the ranks, and yeah, all the best with the lecturing, etc. And stay safe in this.
Yeah, to you too, and good luck to you too. Yeah, everybody stay safe. That's the important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Tim Abraham. Thank you.